Thursday evening, just got back from the gym, retro in fact, stopped there on the way home. And by the way, thanks Brother Mike for standing us up. Brother Tyler and myself were there. Gary didn't make it, but he told us that he might not make it. But you were supposed to be right behind us, and we sat and waited for you like 20 minutes extra before we started. So thanks for the heads up that you were a no-show. Dealing with toxic personalities. And part of the reason that I wanted to touch on this, I've been wanting to touch on it for a while. Just an awesome gorilla brother that has contacted me a couple times now, has an incredible physique, very muscular, very lean, looks awesome. He's a prison guard, and he works in a toxic work environment around a lot of people that pretty much could easily bring him down emotionally and just psychologically, if you really let it, drag him down. He has to be there all day long, every day, and I don't know why it is that way. Some people just go out of their way almost, it seems, to just share their misery. Usually when people that are miserable themselves at home, that's why they carry that shit with them usually. But that's actually a whole nother issue, is being around people in the workplace that are like that. A whole different set of tools you can hopefully try to employ to deal with that, work through that, and try not to let it really affect you and drag you down into the mire with the rest of them. But this video, just to toxic personalities in general, personas in general, I kind of figured I would touch on this because Brother Burrow, he mentioned that there's a toxic person that he has experience with and knows is a toxic person that has the potential to drag people down with him. And that's what a boat anchor does. That's what an anchor does, right? Ball and chain you can at least drag around a little bit, but at least will roll somewhat, but an anchor, no. And he saw a video I made about walking the walk. And so he's conflicted what to do with this person that is trying to reconnect with him. And of course the person's going to need help. The person's going to need something. And so I don't want it to get confused. There are people that I do recognize are beyond a place. They're not yet in a place or a space where I can help them. They're not able to be helped. They're there by their own choice, their own choosing. They want to stay where they are, and they're going to stay where they are repetitively again and again. They haven't hit rock bottom. They really don't genuinely want to change anything. They just don't. It's been offered, they've been introduced to it, and they just don't want to. Those people, I don't know how much you can do for, but what you can't do is you can't let them pull you down with them. You can't do that. You can't do that, because then you're no good to even yourself. You know what I mean? So you can't do that. There's no self-sacrifice to that degree, right? Don't hurt yourself, right? Anything I do to help anybody, it's because I can. Not only do I want to, but I can. If it were going to cost so much that we're going to injure me, like to a significant degree, I can't help that person. I'm not equipped, I'm not outfitted to help that person in whatever way it may be that they need the help. That would do so much damage to me. Some people just can't reach. And of course people have said to me, you're a fool to give these people money when they're panhandling, etc., because they're only spending it for drugs, so forth, so on, or alcohol. Maybe true, maybe not. Certainly true in some cases, but I believe certainly not true in other cases. That there's a big difference there. See, these people, I do not have the luxury of time to get to know these people's individual stories or them. And so it's kind of shoddy, that we have this distance, this barrier still between us, as human beings, but I can't take on that obligation of actually assessing each person and passing any judgment on them. I don't know them. But if it's somebody I know, very well, and I know what they are, and then I'm certain what they're doing, and I know where it's going to go, then I'll bail. I just can't help them. Now, if they ever get to the point where they are able to receive help, they'll allow that, and it's genuine, and I believe that, then I'll still wouldn't turn them away. I would try to help, but I'm not going to, I'm always going to be looking at them knowing, their past history. That's a different deal. I have, first-hand experience with somebody like that. And I wanted to give you an example. And I don't know how great of an example this is, but there was a guy named Charlie, and that's his real name. And this is years ago now. This is probably like in 2000 maybe. And he's a great technician, pretty solid mechanic, really good automobile technician. But he really had a difficult time holding a job in that line of work. Now, there are a lot of really good technicians that are kind of prima donnas and are a bit to put up with in one way or another sometimes. But they're given a lot of leeway because they're just worthwhile in every other regard. So if they're that good. But when a decent, solid technician, especially with the shortage there is nowadays, and there is every year, there's more and more of a shortage of really good techs. For a really good tech for it to be unbearable to employ a person, that his character or his persona or the amount of negativity, the black cloud that hovers around him that he chooses to bring around, it has to be really bad for him to be unemployable by business owners in that field if he's really talented. And that's the case with this guy Charlie. That's the case with this dude. And I knew him, and the guy, he's one of the types of guys that when he would get off work, for a while, I worked in a really, really large shipyard, and I didn't meet him until after that shipyard had closed down. And I went to, because I loved that kind of work, I went to a smaller shipyard that actually worked on ocean tugs. That was probably the biggest thing that they worked on. And that was like a completely unprofessional, I guess, really roughshod, in no way like the same shipyard experience that I had at a huge shipyard. And it was nothing comparable at all. I didn't like it, so I didn't stay long. And then I went back to what I do anyway, turn wrenches on cars. Turning wrenches is basically turning wrenches, The same skills that make you good at working on a car or a truck or a diesel. I do diesels, whatever. You can also work on huge ships because it's very simplistic, just everything's larger. Think of it that way. Even a seal, around a propeller shaft, right? Coming through a shaft alley, exiting to the exterior propeller shaft seal. You're just building a seal. It's just like a grease seal on a small wheel of a car behind a bearing, but it's much, 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 much larger. And if you've been to really good training and really good schools, then they stop and they teach you about, how fasteners load and store energy and what is the definition of classically deformed and just, et cetera, et cetera. It's just a lot different than going to some, really quickie general overall automotive school or whatever. I mean, you learn every little detail when you go to the higher end ones like Audi or something. I mean, they take you right back to the beginning basically and make sure that you're not falling short and lacking in any little regard. How a seal actually works, how internal combustion actually works to the T. I mean, all of these stuff. And it does make you a much better tech. But it's all the same no matter what it is, turning wrenches to turning wrenches. So anyway, this guy, worked at this smaller shipyard, this fly-by-night little shipyard. And what he would do, he's one of these guys that he would get off work after working all day, mostly outside actually, and he would go right to the bar. And I even then, that wasn't my thing at all, so I went home. But he would go right to the bar with a couple guys from the shipyard, another functioning alcoholic, and himself. And they would end up not leaving that bar. They'd just stop in for one drink and then they got to get home. But they would actually end up sitting in that bar all night until close. And then half the time they didn't even know where they wound up, just a total blackout type of thing. And then they'd find themselves somewhere and get up and somehow get to work. And then they'd wear off the hangover during the day at work. And then 9 times out of 10 go out and do it over. So this guy was a guy Charlie was a guy that's just, everything's an inconvenience, everything's a dark cloud, everything's a difficulty, everything's a bad thing, everything's just designed to make life more miserable and full of unhappiness and discontent and discord. And, there's nothing really good about anything in his eyes. And he's just a miserable dude that loves to share his misery. That no matter what you say or how you say it or what you bring up, even in small talk, his comeback is going to be something miserable. You know, reason why it's miserable, or you know, anything. Just hey man, how you doing? You know, you're going to hear a whole shitload of how bad he's doing, how dissatisfied he is in this, and how screwed up the world is, and just 100% of the time, not just once in a while, always. So the guy rode bikes, I rode bikes, so you know, he came over, and we both play guitar, so we had some things in common, but certainly not enough. But he didn't have a lot of real friends, I guess, and it's easy to understand why. He came over to the house one weekend, just dropped by, and I'm just sitting in the house with my girl, and I actually did want to get ready to go out for a ride, and we were going to go riding. And he came over. It was a beautiful sunny day, and he had his girlfriend. Somehow he had this girl that was just miserable with him around, didn't know how to get rid of him, was kind of halfway scared to get rid of him, and you know, throw him out. But they come by and wanted to know if we wanted to go for a ride, and we'll go riding together, and you know, go have a drink somewhere or eat or whatever. And I was like dreading it, come up with every excuse in the world why not, because like that's how I want to spend my quality time off from work. You know, I have off a Saturday and Sunday, and I want to spend the day with this miserable fuck. No, I don't. There's just dark cloud. You know, it can be the most beautiful, perfect day out there, but he's just scowl on his mug 24/7, totally miserable. Everything's horrible. You know, just blind, drunk. You know, just it's don't need to be there about it. So eventually, because he just made himself so unemployable, he wasn't working again, and I was working at an independent shop, and they had an ad in the paper. They were looking for a general service guy. So basically, a general service guy is just a guy that's going to do oil changes. Maybe he can do some, you know, brake pads and a little thing like that. But he's pretty much just an oil change, tire repair guy. And, you know, that's usually a good job for a younger person that just needs to learn something to be, you know, mentored and just kind of serve as an apprentice, basically. So he saw the ad, and he come up and he said, he showed up where I work, and he said, man, why didn't you tell me they were hiring, man? You know, I need a job, man. And I said, Charlie, you know, it's like a GS job. That means, you know, he goes, what do they mean by GS? I said, well, that's, because these aren't old school terms, believe it or not. And I said, well, that's, you know, a guy's going to just change the oil. I mean, it's not going to pay much. It's just like a helper type individual that's trying to entry-level position, basically. He goes, oh. I said, well, otherwise I would have definitely called you. Like not. Like everybody there would hate me if I even brought him around, right? Expose him to this cancer. But I knew that he was, you know, broke. I knew that he was like a burden on the woman he was living with. And I knew that if I were to loan him some money, I would never see him again. You know, because he's going to take the bait. So I said to him, hey, you know, you need a few bucks or something, man? I know times are rough right now for you. And it's not like he pays any of the bills or anything with the woman he's living with or any of that shit. But, of course, he can't resist. He's like, oh, yeah, I could use a couple bucks. So I didn't have a lot of small bills on me. And so I gave him a $100 bill. And I said, is $100 good? Just give it back to me whenever you have it, man. No big deal. Whenever you got it, just give it back to me. It's all. And he's like, oh, man, thanks. I really appreciate that. You know, because I knew, A, he'll never come up with $100 because this said disorganized he isn't much of a, you know, just a reckless person. He'll never come up with $100 that he can just part with like that at one time. And B, I'll never see him again because if he has $5 in his pocket, he's going to go spend it on some kind of a negative, you know, misadventure. So it solved the problem. I was hoping it's just going to get rid of the guy. And it literally did. You know, he took the $100. I've never seen him since. It's been 18 years. I haven't seen him. So, I mean, maybe he's, you know, he knows my name and maybe he's watching this video. And if he is, Charlie, man, you are just have always been one miserable fuck, man. You know, it would be totally awesome if you found some happiness and you just could look at life a little bit differently instead of like everything is me, 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 me. It's all designed to like injure you or something. Because it's truly and really not. And it's sorry to see you just fritter your life away with no appreciation of a sunny day or, you know, a light breeze on your skin or through your hair or anything, not be able to enjoy anything. But, you know, I'm not equipped to handle that shit. And especially then, I certainly wasn't. I'm not taking that on. Not taking that on. Not like that. Not with the effort that would require. Just don't have that kind of patience for somebody just to bring me down 24/7. You know, I'm no thanks. No thanks. I try to accentuate the positive. That's why some of the people that I do support, you know, or that I do cheer on or, you know, just wave a flag for, you know, others will look at that and say, how can you support that guy? He's this, he's that, or that person's this, or that person's that. Look, you don't have to agree with me, but it's very easy to point out what you think's wrong with somebody, right? But then what could they point out that's wrong with you? Different perspectives, right? Maybe shit you ain't even thinking about. So, or at other times in your life, you know, have you never been wrong? Never been things wrong with you? None of us are perfect. But what I try to do is I try to see what's right about somebody, and I try to applaud that and say, hey man, that's awesome. That's, you know what I mean? Some positive reinforcement here, you know? I try to see what's right with things and not what's wrong with things. We all know what's wrong with things. There's so much wrong in our world today. We could be here for how many days, just a solid, endless video full of diatribe of everything that's wrong in the world. We'd never be finished listing it. You know, we all know what's wrong. There's just, you know wrong when you see wrong. So when you see good, man, I kind of like to give that the thumbs up. That's just the way I am. I just choose to see the good in people. Doesn't mean that the good overshadows the bad in some people. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that. And if you have a different opinion, we're all in different places with different perspectives, man. And those aren't weaknesses, those are strengths. You know, the different perspectives that we share and that we have in different places we may be in life at any given moment. You know what I mean? That makes us a multi-celled organism, makes us stronger. So you don't have to have the same opinion as me. Just, you know, you understand why I see what I see. And, you know, you have a different opinion and I understand why you see what you see. And everything's good. That's a small thing, really, between us, you know? So anyway, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying stick your neck out there, make yourself unhappy, take several steps backwards because you're trying to pull somebody up with you when, you know, a drowning person can take you down with them if they really want to and they're determined to drown, right? So, you know, more or less, you know what I mean. Anyway, that's it. You can't save the world, and I recognize that, and I'm sorry to have to admit that, but I recognize that. You know, just do what you can do. That's what we do. Anything I do, it's not injuring me. You know what I'm saying? I do what I can do. There's much more I'd like to be able to do, but I'm just not equipped to. Don't either have the time, resources, you know, whatever it may be, or the knowledge, you know, or the ability. So I do what I can do. So when I do things, it's because I can do those things. If I couldn't do those things, I wouldn't do those things. So we all do what we can do, what we're willing to do, what we know we can do without injuring ourselves or pulling ourselves down, you know. And at the same time, let's not forget, we're trying to become better people. We're trying to become better people. And anything that, we're not going to do things that are going to jeopardize that ourselves. So I would say in this instance, like such as with Brother Burl, you know, maybe take a look at the guy. If it looks like the same old same, then what can you do, right? You've known the person long enough. There's been other chances. He's had plenty of times that he could have done something. He hasn't changed in all this time. You know, and it's not like, you know, is the guy falling on bad times or whatever, or has he just chosen to lay there and mire himself in it and say, woe is me, and try and bring others down with him? You know what I mean? There are people like that. I recognize that. I can't always point the finger and say that person's like that person's like that, because, like I said, I don't have the resources and time, you know, to be able to get to know every single individual on a case-by-case basis, to be able to assess that. Just don't have it. It's a lot easier for me just to see somebody that needs money and say, hey, here's a little bit of money, you know, and go on with my day, and then what he does is on him with it. Anyway, that's it. You know, we do what we can, and what we can't do, you know, sometimes it's easy to recognize. But that doesn't mean to count the person out forever, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, don't hurt yourself over it. It's not, that's not the way it works. And don't feel bad if, you know, you call out somebody on something, and I've said something good about that person, because I'm looking at what's good about him. It doesn't mean that there's nothing bad about him, right? Same with me. I'm not perfect, not pretending to be, never going to be. You know, I'm not trying to achieve perfection. I'm just trying to improve. All right, so that's it. Take care. Have an excellent night. And New Year's coming up. And I'm looking very much forward to having the extended weekend again.